Time for another cooking challenge, and this is part of the cheapISH series. So this is where I go to a supermarket and buy 8 items from categories and try and make 3 meals out of it. So rules and parameters, and there will not be many because rules make rules lawyers. I'm going to go to Waitrose today. I'm going to buy 1 item from each of these 8 categories. So meat, dairy, staple or packet, fruit, green vegetables, non-leafy vegetables, jar or can, and frozen. And from that I have to make 3 dishes or 3 meals, one of which will have to have a starter or dessert. On top of my shopping, I'll have access to salt, pepper, water, a tablespoonful of oil or fat, 1 herb, 1 spice, 1 sauce, 1 love, and 1 foraged or homegrown from the garden item. That is it, and today we're going shopping at the King's Own Village, Poundbury, near Dorchester, where I believe there happens to be a particularly posh Waitrose. Okay, that went reasonably well. Poundbury is a very strange place. I must make a video about it sometime. It was the brainchild of, well, then Prince Charles before he got the power up. It's built on this kind of nostalgic notion of having quaint architecture or classic architecture, but it's a truly strange place. I will take you there with the camera sometime. Anyway, here's the haul. A tin of red kidney beans in water, 60p. A camembert, bizarrely cheaper than Laughing Cow triangles. Yeah, it feels like it's reasonably ripe, but anyway, we might be cooking with it anyway, so that's fine. That was £2. Pork mince. This is what, 500 grams? 500 grams of pork mince, £2.75. A bag of 6 small apples for £1. Egg noodles, medium egg noodles, 250 grams, £1.25. A cauliflower, a rather nice looking one actually. Should be able to use some of the greens as well as the curd. £1.20. 750 grams of super sweet corn, frozen, £1.45. And a pack of 6 salad tomatoes, £1. So the total for this haul is £11.25, which obviously is a bit more than we would normally pay on one of these cheapest challenges, but it's Waitrose and it's, as I say, it's in the King's Own Village. So that was an expensive shop, and there weren't very many cheaper options than this. Anyway, tomorrow I've got to turn that into 3 different meals and a starter or dessert. Okay, so for today, my spice is going to be garlic granules. My sauce is going to be sweet chili. My herb is going to be oregano. And my foraged item is going to be blackberries. Blackberries are peak of season right now, and these are really lovely ones. I did get a couple of boo-boos picking these, but I have a theory that blackberries don't taste as good unless you get scratched picking them. As always, the best ones were just out of reach. But these are very nice, and they're so ripe, hopefully they won't need any additional sweetener because we don't have any. Breakfast is going to be a kind of sausage thing made from some of this pork mince. Now, pork can be a little bit dry. This is 8% fat, so it shouldn't be too bad. But I'm going to add some apple to this. I think probably 2 of my apples. So apples into the food processor. I think I will just shred those down first, because I don't want really big chunks of apple in my sausage. I'm going to have about half of this pork mince probably. Now, of course, it is already minced, but putting it in the food processor like this will make it into more of a sausage meat type of texture. That's my theory anyway. Well, actually, that's about 2/3 of the pork. We'll save 1/3 for a different dish. Into here, we're also going to have like about a teaspoonful of garlic granules, a teaspoonful of oregano. Oregano I chose as the herb because it's really good all-rounder. So it's kind of got some of the properties of sage and thyme, rosemary even. A little bit almost like mint, but it's a really good all-rounder as a herb. Salt, half a teaspoon. And a generous grind of black pepper. And also, just to help with the moisture and the spicing, a squirt of sweet chili. This will add a little bit of sugar to the whole thing, as well as the apples, and that will help it to brown. I'll just push down those bits of apple into the mixture. That's good. We need to get that in a pan now. So over here, big pan. We get that really nice and hot. While that pan is warming up, I'm just going to divide this sausage meat into 6 portions, I think. That seems about right. Yeah. I've got a tablespoonful of oil in my allowances. I'm going to use about half of that amount just to lubricate the pan. Once I'm confident that that's getting hot, I'm going to get these sausage things in. They are quite soft. Right, I think we'll shape them a bit like that. Okay, I can see these are starting to cook at the edge, so now it's safe to flip them. Right, there's something else I want to get in this pan, and that's tomatoes. I don't know how many I'm going to fit in there, so I'll just cut one first and then I'll have a look and see how many more we can get in. I think we'll squeeze one more in there. My sausage patties are getting close to done now. Nice amount of browning on those. Just a case of moving them around so that the edge bits all get an even chance at cooking. Tomatoes. Oh, they've stuck a little bit. Just going to put a little bit of water in there just to help steam those tomatoes a little bit. So the pork patties are done. got them out. Tomatoes also done. So I'm just going to let this meat rest a little bit and just put a glass of water in this pan. That has made a really dark stock. Might be useful for something. Kidney beans. I'm going to have a few of these kidney beans, maybe about a third of the can, together with a little squirt of sweet chili, some pepper, a little bit of salt, and then a couple of these cooked tomatoes. I'm not going to puree these down or anything, but I'll just take the skins off. Yeah, I think we'll have 3 of the tomatoes in there. If I'd been thinking about this more, I might have done this the other way around and put the tomatoes in first. So anyway, just going to mash the tomatoes a little bit without mashing too many of the beans. I will smash up a couple of the beans though, because that will help to just thicken this a little bit. I think I will just simmer this a little bit to reduce off some of that moisture. Thicken the sauce a little bit. Right, it is time for plating up. I think since I'm quite hungry, we're going to have 3 sausage patties and some beans. Okay, well, that's breakfast. I would say for this series, that's not a bad breakfast. Right then. Have they remained? Are they dry? They do look a little bit dry inside. They're not though. Pretty good. The beans in a kind of quick tomato sauce. Fried tomato. Well, I know what to expect here. It's not a bad breakfast. These sausage things, these are a bit firmer than I wanted really, but the apple has kept them really moist. I'm trying to see if I can taste the apple in there. The apple is present, but it's really quite subtle. Genuinely not a bad breakfast. One of the better ones we've had on this series. Now there are some leftovers. 3 of the pork patties left. 2 pieces of tomato. I'll put those in boxes and put them in the fridge. So this deglaze from the pan, I have a feeling I might have taken this too far. I think the sugars from the tomato have burnt rather than caramelised. I'm just going to give that a taste. We'll evaluate it. We'll see whether it's worth keeping. No. Unfortunately burnt. So that has scuppered my plans for what I was going to do with this deglaze. We're going to improvise. The remaining 3 dishes today are going to include noodles. Spoilers, including the dessert. So on this series, very often what I end up doing is repeating cooking steps. I'm going to try to avoid that today. So I'm going to hydrate enough noodles for the remaining 3 dishes and we'll save the rest cold. So pan of water just coming to the boil. I'm going to cook 3 of these 4 nests of noodles. Okay, the heat can just go off on that now and those will cook in the hot water. Next, I'm going to need some of this fantastic cauliflower. It's a really lovely cauliflower. So, just going to break out a few of the large florets, like that much maybe. One of those and one slightly smaller one. It's probably enough. It's got loads of cauliflower left. And this I'm going to chop quite finely. I don't want to completely destroy the texture, but I do want it to be maybe like a bit bigger than a rice. Chef's privilege. So I'm going to get this pan nice and hot, and this is going to need my remaining oil allowance, which is about half a tablespoonful. Okay, my remaining pork mince is going in there, along with that cauliflower. I think that's probably enough. So as this cooks, a bit of salt, a bit of pepper, oregano, garlic powder. So yeah, the same seasonings we had at breakfast, but that's because that's what we got. Okay, just going to keep that going. And then 2 of my remaining 3 tomatoes. These I think we'll just dice up quite small. Not bothering to peel or de-seed or anything like that. Now that tomato can go in there. I've also got those cooked tomatoes and the tomato skins from breakfast. I think I'm going to chop those up and put it all in there, including the skins. I think it needs it. I think it needs the extra tomato, and I've still got 1 uncooked tomato left. The pork is now fully cooked, so I think we can have a little taste for seasoning. A bit more oregano, a bit more pepper, a bit more salt. Now, some of my kidney beans, and some of the liquid as well, because it is just water that's had beans cooked in it. And with kidney beans, they've already done the kind of making it safe thing, where you boil it and throw the water away. Actually, you might as well have a few more of the beans, really, because I haven't got another plan for them. Okay, and I'm just going to simmer that now to reduce it a little bit, just to reduce that liquid down to maybe about half of that amount of liquid. We've got to find a dish to put this in. The noodles have fully hydrated and swelled up enormously, so I'll get 1/3 of those out now. I'll drain the rest. So these noodles are going to go in there, but first I want them cut up into shorter strands. Don't hate me, I'm just doing what I think is what I want. So mostly shorter strands. Let's just get the last few. There we go, then that's easy to mix in. Like that. Okay, that can come off the heat now. So the oven is preheating. Time for the cheese. So, yeah, this camembert's not quite. This is not quite ripe enough to eat. I mean, it depends how you like it, I suppose. But I think a lot of people like it a bit softer than that. However, it's going to be very good. It's perfect for cooking because you can get nice meat slices without it all falling apart. So I'm just going to arrange some slices on top there. Some people don't like the rind on camembert and end up trimming it off. I think if you're going to do that, you're wasting most of the cheese. It's probably better to choose something you do like. I personally think the rind is the best bit. Is that enough cheese? Important questions of our time. If you can fit more cheese, why wouldn't you? I think that looks about right. So now that's going to go in a 180-degree oven for just about probably 10-15 minutes just to melt that cheese. I might even put it under the grill to see if we can crisp that up a little bit. My noodle bake thing has come out of the oven now, but it's still in the kind of napalm phase. So while that just cools down a little bit, it's just time to cook a bit of this sweet corn. I'll just put a dash of water in that, put that in the microwave. Okay, well that's lunch, and there's enough there for 2 people really. So the cheese on top of here has kind of melted and gone crispy and done all sorts of interesting things. Yeah, and as I hope, the liquid from the beans and other things has made a kind of a gravy. Right, well, just make sure you can see that, yeah. Okay. Now, I think a little bit of sweet chilli. And let's give this a taste. Bearing in mind, it is still incredibly hot. There's a bit with everything in it. That's really good. The interesting thing is, texturally, you can't really tell the difference between the cauliflower and the mince. Flavour-wise, you can taste both things in the mix. But that cauliflower has kind of extended the mince. It tastes really good. And the noodles make it really comforting as well. If I was making this outside of this challenge context, I'd probably put some more tomato in there. Maybe tomato puree, probably some paprika, maybe hot paprika. But yeah, no complaints at all with that. Now, of course, we've only used the corn here as a side. So later on, we'll be using it as an ingredient. Well, I'm having a bit more. So yeah, very good lunch. Okay, lunch is done. I'm going to try and get a little head start on dessert for dinner. And I want to make something with blackberries and apples. I haven't got any sugar to put with that, but I have got super sweet sweet corn. This is some that's left over from lunch, and there's plenty more in the pack. So I'm going to try to extract the sweetness from this sweet corn. So I'll put that in the microwave first just to cook it. And now it's time for the recurring character of handheld blender to appear in this video. So just about enough water to cover. It might need more because it might, the moment I blend it, it might thicken up. All right, that worked pretty well, I think. I don't want any big pieces of the corn husks in there, so I'm going to strain that through this sieve. Pretty good. I'm also going to strain this again, actually, because I'm cooking in this. I'm going to cook some apples in this and some blackberries. And since I'm going to be straining this again, I don't need to peel this, but I will take the pips out and the core, just because that hampers the straining later. Yeah, I don't think we need any more than that. I'm just going to give that a tiny bit more water because I really don't want that to burn. And we'll just simmer that now for 5-6 minutes just to soften the apples. Now that those apples have begun to soften, I'm going to have some of my lovely blackberries in there, but not all of them, because some of these are going to be reserved for garnish and other things. So something strange is going to happen to the colour now. As soon as these berries start to cook and burst, it's going to drastically change the appearance of this mixture. Now, starting with it looking a bit brown, but we're not finished yet. Okay, I reckon that's probably almost enough cooking. Time to strain again. Maybe just half at a time. There we go, that's the apple, corn and blackberry mixture. I'm really curious to taste this actually, because I wonder how sweet it is going to be. Interesting. Can't taste the corn, but yeah, that's really quite sweet. So I'm going to use some of these cooked noodles, and once again I am going to cut them up, just because this is going to be very difficult to eat otherwise. I promise you I will use some intact noodles later in another dish, if you're fretting about that. That does of course mean that dinner is going to be noodles two ways, in addition to lunch being also noodles. But this is the nature of these sort of videos, is we got what we've got. We've got to make use of what we've got. So that's going to go in there. And now I'm going to cover that and just let those noodles soak up more of that juice while it cools down as well. So this has now cooled down and it has changed colour a little bit. It's gone kind of almost slightly purple. That's what I was hoping for. Cheese in a dessert, not an unusual idea. Camembert, perhaps not the most common cheese to find in a dessert. But again, you know, it is what I've got. So what I'm going to do here is cut this into little pieces and stir it in. It might be easier to tear it into little pieces, actually. You know, I mean, cheesecake is a thing, isn't it? So, I mean, I suppose I probably could have tried to make some sort of crust out of the noodles, make a cheesy layer, but I'm actually going to go for trying to bake this. Eva, will you be quiet? Eva! I'm kind of tempted to put maybe another apple in here chopped up. That might have been a bit wasteful, peeling and coring that. Now I'm trying to work fast here because this apple will turn brown if I don't get it in the acidic juice of the blackberries. Right, so that apple goes in there. And I'll stir that in as well. Again, this is going to be baked, so that's going to go into an oven-proof dish. And I'm going to arrange some of these nicer, more ripe blackberries on top, because these are the really sweet ones. Okay, so that's dessert prepared. I'm going to put that in the fridge for now, and I'll bake that while I'm preparing dinner. Okay, time for dinner. And the first thing I've got to do is preheat the oven and get this in there so that this can bake. I reckon it'll take about 25 minutes or something once the oven's up to temperature. Meanwhile, let's get dinner underway. Now, I wanted to make a kind of ramen bowl type of thing. Now, unfortunately, my plan to save the deglaze from breakfast was not viable because it burnt and it wasn't very nice. So anyway, I'm going to try and make a broth, a quick broth. I have got these pork patties. So what I'm going to do is slice these up thinly into little strips. And we're going to give these some more crispy edges. So we're going for this pan, which actually doesn't get as hot as a cast iron pan for various interesting reasons. But also, I'll be able to see what's going on in here. It's super non-stick, so I don't need any oil. Just give these a little taste. Actually quite nice cold. That'd be quite nice, like in a meatloaf sandwich or something. There's a couple of other things I'm going to fry in here as well. One of those things is going to be some really thin slices of cauliflower. Yeah, just a few really thin shavings of cauliflower. And I think also half of this tomato, but I'm going to cut it into pieces that give me a little bit more browning. Okay, I'm turning off the heat now, and I'm going to have these pieces of sausage out of here. Okay, that's coming off the heat, because I actually need that to cool down a little bit, or else we'll end up damaging the non-stick. And then hot water, because there's less thermal shock to the non-stick. Good. That will make a little bit of a sort of broth starter for my noodle bowl. I'm going to prepare a bit more of this cauliflower. But if we go in here, find there's some really nice fresh leaves. And so these leaves I'm just going to shred it into pieces like that. I'm just going to have a rummage through the cauliflower and see what else I can find that looks nice. This one, probably not the midrib, but the leaf is fine. Similarly on this one, we'll have the green bits off the side. The midrib would be fine, but it'll just take a bit more cooking than I really want to do right now. The cauliflower, I'm going to break up into little florets. I'm not going to cut it, I'm going to snap it, and then we get little trees. And then here in the middle of the cauliflower, I'm going to have that stalk out of there, because this stalk will lose the little scar off the end, but this stalk is like another vegetable in its own right, so got a lot of similarities to maybe a mild radish or something like that, or a turnip. And so that can be just cut up into sticks like that, matchsticks. And it's the same vegetable as all the other stuff here, but it's a different texture. So there we go, cauliflower, one vegetable, but three vegetables. Over here, that deglaze from that pan can go in there. I need some more liquid, so I'll just give that pan another wash. In fact, I can see there's still some stuck on there. I need the liquid anyway, so there we go. Plus, that tomato is going to go in there now as well. A pinch of garlic powder, a pinch of salt, less than 1/4 teaspoonful. Right, that's up to temperature now. So I think the first bits to go in are the cauliflower florets. We'll perhaps give them 2 minutes head start on the other ingredients. All right, next, the sticks cut from the stalks. Again, that's only going to need about a minute. Right, I think that can actually go off now, because everything that's going to happen from here on will just happen in the heat of this broth. So the green bits go in, and some of my cold noodles. Which I don't think I want the whole lot, probably just that. Probably that is plenty. Okay, and we're just going to let that stand now for a couple of minutes. Right, let's plate up some noodles. Is it still called plating up when it goes in a bowl? I've made probably more than I really need here. That means there's second helpings to come back for. And then some of the broth and some of this sausage stuff, which there's just way too much of. Oh, that timer is telling me to turn the oven off. My pudding should be baked by now. Anyway, bit of corn and some slices of tomato. There we go. That is dinner. Well, that's part of dinner. Oh, I nearly forgot. We've got a toasted cauliflower garnish. Okay, well, I'm interested to taste this broth and see if it's got enough kind of substance. Yeah, that's not bad actually. It's picked up a lot of the flavour of the cauliflower from obviously cooking the cauliflower parts in it. But yeah, that's nice enough to drink as a broth. Noodles with cauliflower. Nice. Good. Toasted cauliflower is really interesting. It's kind of amazing how much flavour that can develop, that vegetable, just by toasting it. It's lacking a bit on the savoury, on the umami. A dash of soy sauce in there would be fantastic. On the subject of noodles, my friend Babatunde in Nigeria has now received my parcel of extra spicy noodles that I sent to him. It took forever to get there. We'd almost given up, but that's arrived now. So if you want to check out Babatunde's take on 2 times spicy noodles, this is the ones that were banned in Denmark. have a look at the video linked in this card or in the video description. This is a Nigerian's take on 2 times spicy noodles. I have a feeling he's going to take it more in his stride than many people do. Okay, this is the point where I say table manners be damned. It did occur to me today that somebody's probably going to question my choice of tomatoes as a non-leafy vegetable, because that whole stupid thing about tomatoes are a fruit. Yeah, so are lots of things. Tomatoes are fruit, but they're also vegetables, because those two things aren't opposites. That was not bad. Yeah, as I say, if we'd had the deglaze from breakfast and that hadn't been burnt, that would have been much better. Dash of soy sauce in there probably would have done it, but I'm not going to cheat and add that. Anyway, we've got pudding to look forward to. Well, it's changed a fair old bit. It's very jiggly. And the blackberries have gone kind of really dark purple, almost blue. This is going to be fruity, cheesy napalm. No very graceful way to dish that up, I don't think. But let's give that a taste. Well, actually, it smells fantastic. The aroma of the blackberries is all there. And actually the cheese as well, the kind of dairy creaminess of the cheese in there. Right, this is going to be... I should just wait a few minutes, but... Interesting. It's not exactly undersweet. It could do with a dash of sugar again, because we just haven't got sugar to play with in the ingredients. And I'm reluctant to add a sugar ration to these videos because that just encourages the people who say I'm making it too easy. And to be honest, I think they'd have a point. This is strange, but quite nice. So the noodles and corn have cooked together to make a kind of something that's got a little bit like the flavour and texture of maybe rice pudding. It's amazing how much of the blackberry, the really kind of floral aroma of the blackberries has been preserved. I mean, considering what went in here, which is just corn, noodles, quite a lot of cheese, blackberries, apple. It's come out rather well, considering it's so few and such basic ingredients. I would say camemberts are a little bit too salty for this application. So in a minute, back to Studio Shrimp for rating the meals and the nutritional breakdown of each of the meals as well. Bearing in mind that that nutritional breakdown is the whole amounts that I cooked, not necessarily the amounts I served and ate. But you know, if you care about that sort of thing, you can probably divide a couple of these meals by 2 to get the actual number you're looking for. Anyway, back to Studio Shrimp now.
Studio Shrimp here. This was an interesting episode for me because the shopping bit was really tricky. Waitrose has a bit of a well-deserved reputation for being an expensive shop, and they are making a show of trying to offer cheaper food with their Essentials own brand range, but the prices are still often way above other supermarkets for equivalent products. And honestly, in what universe are artichoke hearts an essential food? As a result of being plunged into this comparatively expensive environment, I wandered about the place with an empty trolley for at least 20 minutes, looking for the cheap items and realising there sort of aren't that many of them. For the first time in this whole series, I sat there in the evening after the shopping and couldn't really think of a plan for the 4 dishes, and I thought about just not making this video. But by the morning, some ideas had started to form. Anyway, let's rate those dishes. Breakfast, sausage and beans. This was a pretty satisfying breakfast, with a decent amount of protein to start the day. The sausage patties were inevitably a bit crumbly. The apple did help with that though. In the overall context as a series, this was one of the better breakfasts, so I'll give this 7 out of 10. Lunch, noodly bake. This was a tremendously comforting dish, and everything in it just worked. I'm going to give this one 8 out of 10. Dinner, noodle bowl. It was nice enough, but just lacking in savoury punch. I think only 5 out of 10 for this one. Dessert, blue string pudding. For all its simplicity, this was quite a decent dessert, and there was more of that delicious blackberry aroma present in this dish than I expected, compared to, I suppose, to other baked dishes with blackberries in them. I wonder what it was that caused that. It might just have been the blackberries they placed on the top before baking. I think this one deserves 7 out of 10. A sprinkle of sugar or a scoop of sweet ice cream would have made it 8 or 9. Now on to the lesson learned, and there's only one distinct thing this time, and that's that sweet corn works in a dessert. Dramatic pause to allow regular viewers to remember that, no, you haven't gone crazy. That was one of the lessons from the previous episode. But that's the point I want to make this time, or on its way to the point. Sweet corn worked in a dessert in the past, and it worked in a dessert today. I sometimes have a tendency to think that I have to continually reinvent the whole wheel. Sometimes in these videos I fail simply because I forget to repeat what should have been an obvious and memorable past success. I wonder if I do that in other areas of my life too. Anyway, I hope this has been interesting. Next time I do one of these, I think it might be an interesting side quest of some sort. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.